Good morning. Welcome to Love Babs Love Talk. Y'all are up early. We are talking to the Connecticut Tenants Union folks. How y'all doing?
Good. Good morning. Thanks for having us.
I'm so glad to have you. So, all right, you got a press conference coming up. But first of all, tell me a little bit about the Connecticut Tenants Union. Because y'all are you relatively new? Few years? Few months?
Few years.
What's happening? Okay.
Yeah, I can share a little bit of the backstory. We formalized as an organization in 2023. We had been organizing mostly in New Haven and Hartford for a couple of years before that. But 2023 is when our founding chapters came together and decided to form Connecticut Tenants Union as a statewide union. And we've just been hitting the ground running ever since.
And so what is the need? Like, is this a model for tenant unions across the country, or did you all see a model across the country and said, let's utilize that for here?
A little bit of both. We were in touch with a lot of tenant unions and tenant organizing projects around the country. We met with a lot of people to figure out what models are out there, what are other people doing. But we learned a lot from that. Of course, but we also did decide that we wanted to do something specific, which was draw from the structure and the principles of labor union organizing and apply that to the housing context. Meaning we organize majority or supermajority unions in apartment buildings or complexes. And we also bring people together across a particular landlord's portfolio. If you know, a lot of the landlords that we're dealing with are big companies, corporate landlords and mega landlords who own a lot of housing. And so tenants just intuitively understand if they've got a union in their building and their same mega landlord owns a building in their neighborhood, those two buildings should come together and join forces, and then they'll have more strength. So that's what we do. And like I said, we focus on trying to collectively bargain with landlords to give tenants some stability and predictability in their rent, and also get things that they need fixed, get health and safety hazards addressed, and just improve the quality of the housing that people are living in, and trying to keep rents from going up beyond what people can afford. And we work on some policy stuff as well, but that's kind of the core of what we do.
And housing tenants' rights and housing has been a tenuous situation for a very long time. And even though municipalities, particularly here in New Haven, there's a rent commission, there's a livable cities initiative, and between those two entities, you still have to have another body in there to another governing body or oversight body to catch these landlords. And I think you're right. I've seen a great many of absentee landlords and big conglomerate kind of landlords in communities. And then a lot of them not doing right by their properties or their tenants. So is that some of the stuff you're hearing and seeing?
Absolutely. And yeah, maybe Jasmine, who's an organizer with us, could help answer that question too.
Talk to me, Jasmine. What do you see out there?
Yeah, honestly, it's been a little bit of mix of everything. My own complex was organized where I participate. There's also Q Avenue Haven that we've been organizing for the last 2 years. There's actually a tenants union as well. It's a range of stories, things from like my oven hasn't worked in 9 months to no heat in the winter, and these are people with families as well, with children. and a lack of communication and respect coming in from not just management, from but oversight from the landlord, like you're saying, that they just come into communities without any context, without any care, and just become absentee figures that just, show up once a month and then don't appear for the rest of it.
Wow. Wow. And so do you feel like y'all are making inroads? Like, are you moving the needle? Because I see the press. I see the press and I see tenants are gravitating toward being organized. Does it feel like you're moving the needle in the right direction?
Me personally, yeah. At the end of the day, these are conversations not just about tenant organization, but about power, about people taking back and reclaiming what's theirs from the start, from others who have disenfranchised them for so long and try to take away and, stifle them in so many ways. And when I'm having this conversation with tenants, you realize that at the end of the day, we're all people. Even though we have come from so many different backgrounds and day to day we go through so many different things, we're all still talking about coming together as communities, as working class people, as tenants, as humans, and yeah, just reclaiming what's ours. And you see them kind of go through this metamorphosis of growth into people who are now aware that it's not just about a tenants union, it's about all of us, and it's about changes in your day-to-day life.
So are some apartment owners interested in the tenants union, or are they all just, we hate this?
I can speak to that. I will say we have been able to get a couple of landlords to come to the table kind of readily and establish a decent line of communication pretty quickly. And, I will say I don't think there's been one instance where some type of pressure hasn't had to be applied. But there are cases where we've been able to kind of get on a good footing and work together and handle things with the landlord pretty without too many huge hiccups. But realistically, that's rarely the case because people come together because they haven't been able to get anything done by themselves and they feel like they have to do something more. So those types of landlords are generally the ones that require a lot of pressure to get them to do what they're supposed to do and to engage with their tenants respectfully. And I think it's not just that they hate the tenant union, but it's about that balance of power that Jasmine was speaking to when they are confronted with their tenants in an organized way who have clear demands and a plan. And, we treat everything as a negotiation. It's not meet our demands or F you. It's come to the table. We're going to come with a proposal. You come with a proposal. Let's work it out. But even that, there's a lot of resistance to that because it does mean actually acknowledging that your tenants have a say and have their side of the story. And there's a lot of resistance to that. I can't speak to every property owner out there, but the ones that we deal with, there's a lot of resistance to that. And it's a shame. I think a lot of us and a lot of tenants are sometimes sort of baffled as to why it's so difficult to just get to the table and have a real conversation about real issues. I mean, the QAV situation, we're going to have the press conference later today. That's such a good example of that, where tenants we're telling the stories of their experiences over the winter, not having heat, having broken appliances for months and months and months, sending emails, calling, never getting a response. And then we even brought LCI out and they did a big sweep of the apartment complex and they identified 77 code violations.
Whoa.
In just 11 apartments, 77. And yet, even after all of that, we had it documented from the city. The owner, Yohai Lavram, still told tenants, there's no work orders. You guys are lying. And he said the same thing to the press. He said, we're doing a great job. There's no problems here. And it was just like, are we living in two different realities? It was just like hard to understand, other than realizing that it's about that balance of power and sharing power. And he just was so resistant to acknowledging that his tenants were right and he was wrong. He just couldn't bring himself to do that. So, that's what we have to deal with.
So do you bring this to the courts? Like, do y'all have the power to bring things? I mean, everybody has the power to bring things to the court, but is that the last battle? Like, is that when you get to going to court, that's a whole different kind of fight?
We think of the legal system as one of the tools in our tool belt among
Okay.
many. So with this QAV situation, with the code violations, if 21 days go by and the issues aren't resolved, tenants do have the opportunity to start paying their rent into court for housing code violations. And we will absolutely do that if he doesn't get the things fixed. We would prefer to not do that. And like I said, meet him at the table and work out a plan that's actually viable. But when we got to take it to court, we got to take it to court. I mean, it's whatever it takes to get what the tenants need. We'll do that.
So where's the QAB properties? I don't. Where's that?
Called
Go ahead, Jasmine.
Quinnipiac. It's two buildings. It's Quinnipiac Ave and Eastern Ave. They're right off exit 8. On near Foxton, the way I identify is the big Walmart on Foxton Road.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's off the street from that.
Okay. And so, who owns the property?
So that's a great question with an actually complicated answer. And this is a interesting aspect to this story. So, the LLC that owns the property, right? The limited liability corporation is called NH Kings LLC.
Oh, I've seen their signs.
Yeah, so that's the LLC, and then the principal, the individual who's associated with that LLC that's listed on the property records, his name is Yohai Lavram. Now, Mr. Lavram owns a property management company called Hammock Home Management. So tenants mostly would be familiar with Hammock Home. That's who collects their rent. That's who they sign a lease with. Hammock Home Management. Hammock Home owns a number of other properties in New Haven, West Haven, and most recently in Meriden. They just bought a big apartment building. But who owns the building is a bit more there's more complication to it, because over the NH Kings LLC and over Yohai Lavram, we've been able to trace the connection to another real estate firm called Lodzia Real Estate, that they actually published their entire 2025 financial report on the internet. So we were able to get a lot of detail into what they own and how much income they're taking in from their properties, etc. Lodzia Real Estate is an Israeli-based firm that is the same firm that was behind Ocean Management, which was subject to a lot of controversy, a lot of tenant unions, a lot of lawsuits, a lot of bad press. Ocean Management was kind of one of the worst actors in New Haven in terms of housing conditions. Ocean and Hammock both are being funded and ultimately run by Lodzia Real Estate. So another thing that's been going on with the QAV situation is Yohai Lavram, the guy who's actually on the property records, he keeps saying there's no connection to Ocean Management. I'm not Ocean. Hammock is not Ocean. We're a totally new thing. Yeah, they were bad, but we're way better than them, and totally different operation. But that also is just simply not true, because both companies and the individuals behind both companies are both being ultimately managed by this investment firm. So at the top of the pyramid, it's the same people. And that's part of the story we want to tell in the press conference today.
I was going to ask you, what was the press conference about? Like, what's the lead in?
That's part of the lead-in, is kind of pulling back the curtain on the real people responsible behind QAV and so many other apartment buildings in New Haven, and explaining where this money is coming from and where it's flowing to. We've also been able to find out a lot about loads of your real estate and other businesses that those investors are involved in the Middle East. So those are connections that I think New Haven deserves to understand about who owns the housing in our communities and where that money's going. But then the press conference will also be about where the tenant union is at. They had a meeting with Yochai Lavram scheduled for last week, and they elected a negotiating committee and prepared a negotiation proposal to sit down and have a real conversation with him about all of the issues and how they could be addressed. He decided to cancel the meeting right at the last minute, did not let people into the office, and it was really, upsetting and disappointing. So we're going to tell the story of what happened there and then what comes next now that he's kind of sort of walked away from the table.
Wow. All right. So you're mobilizing. I read on your website 24 chapters of I think of folks mobilizing. How many members?
Yeah, I think we're at around 1,500.
Oh, that's a good number.
Yeah, between all the apartment buildings that are organized and then our at-large members, people who just join as individual members until they can organize a chapter. So yeah, we've been able to grow a lot.
Okay. And in Connecticut, is this a New Haven condition only, or are there other cities and towns who are trying to figure out how to deal with these landlords who don't want to do landlord work?
It's definitely not just a New Haven thing, that's for sure. Yeah, our 24th chapter that just went public last week actually formed in Meriden, and Jasmine's been doing a lot of work in Meriden, so maybe she can speak to that, and then I'll comment on a couple other places.
Yeah, Jasmine, talk to me about what it's like when you meet up with folks to get them organized. I mean, do they think it's a real thing? Like, I can imagine being so frustrated, and then finally here comes an entity that might help you raise up your voice and raise awareness around the conditions that you're living in. I mean, do people feel very hopeful? Do they feel like finally, or do they feel like, it's just, I got to find someplace else to live, but I can't. Do you know what I mean? Like, what's the mood?
Can honestly be a really mixed bag of a little bit of everything that you just mentioned. A lot of the times it's kind of this shock of frustration, like you're saying, that I've been dealing with this for so long, and then there's finally a way that I can educate myself on and try to take action and enact some changes. So it's definitely a mixed bag, and I've definitely heard that, I'm just going to pack up and move. Unfortunately, though, what I tell most people and what I've seen, experienced myself is that regardless of where you move, there's going to be issues. And regardless of who you're dealing with, it's going to be some sort of battle, most likely, to be heard. So we have the choice right now. It's either to stay in your community, the one that you've built roots in, the one where you know, and the one where you've called home, and fight for that and make something for the rest of your neighbors. Or we can move somewhere else, let them win, and start all over from scratch on that fight. And a lot of the times tenants just come to the realization on their own that it's worth fighting for, not just for their own lives and their own living conditions, but for their neighbors, that this is a battle that will not be won individually. And it's also another conversation to have with tenants that this is something that they have to do, basically, that they have to decide and wake up today, tomorrow, and the next day to keep engaging, to keep fighting, and just to keep making the effort. And I've seen it all over. It's not just New Haven. I've worked with Quinnipiac over here in New Haven, but I'm also working with Meriden, and it's a complex of over 500 units. So, it can be very difficult to bring those many people together, but we're making progress. And each day, more people reach out to me, and more people are curious with more questions, and more of that fire. I see it growing from just neighbors caring about their community.
So what time is the press conference, and where is it? Like, how do people find you?
So it's going to be today at 12 noon in front of the Hammock Home Management Office, which is located at 350 Orange Street. It's like right by the Elm City Communities building, right down the street from that.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I did not know that. Huh.
Yeah. Yeah. Easy to miss. It's like one office in a small office building, but it does have the big Hammock Home logo out front, so that's where we'll be.
Oh, okay. And so you start at 12:30, and
12
you'll be
o'clock.
out there for how long?
We'll be out there from 12 to about 12:45, 1 o'clock.
Okay, okay,
Yeah.
okay. And so you got press coming, you got people coming,
Yeah.
banners, signs, the whole thing. And then what happens after this? Like, what's the next move? I mean, not that you have to
Fight
tell me.
going.
Huh?
Yeah.
We keep the fight going. This is just part of many steps to keep people not only engaged with who they are dealing with, but keep pressure in a sense on Yohai to let him know that it doesn't matter that if he barricades the door office, it doesn't matter that, he tries to lie and ignore and bully, that we're not going away. And that the tenants are definitely not going to sit down, lie still, and take whatever he is that he wants to give.
Okay. Now, who else joins you in this? Do you have the support of LCI? Do you have the support of, elected officials and, other community like leader people? Do you have their support?
Yeah, we do. We do. In fact, the LCI code inspections that I mentioned, that was a coordinated thing. We worked directly with the executive director, Liam Brennan, to
He was a
plan.
great guy and a straight up guy.
He has done wonders for that agency. I'm so happy with how much better LCI is functioning today versus a couple of years ago. It's great. So we coordinated that directly with him, planned out a certain day, and they were able to inspect a bunch of apartments at one time. So that was a good collaboration. And we have a good line in with the mayor's office. He attended a similar event that we held a couple of weeks ago with QAV and showed up and spoke on behalf of the union. And he passed that tenant union ordinance a few years ago, and ever since then he's been pretty consistent in supporting the tenant unions. I think that there is more that the city could do. I will say that they recently utilized their new powers under the new ordinance against another really terrible landlord in town, Dr. Chu.
Is that the guy that's burning down properties?
Yeah, 18 fires across his properties, just really crazy. They used this new power that they have against him to actually revoke his landlord license, which allows the maximum fines allowed under the state, which is fantastic. And we're so glad that they did that. We may have to push them to do something similar when it comes to Hammock Home and Yohai Lavram. And I don't, we'll see whether there's pushback or whether they're willing to go ahead and use the tools that they have at their disposal. I hope so. Mayor Elker, like I said, has been showing up. So that's really the thing that we're going to ask them to do, is use the full weight of their code enforcement powers and put his landlord license in jeopardy if he does not resolve these issues. And that would be some useful leverage on the tenant side to have their city back them up like that. So that's what we're looking for.
Well, thank you for being here this morning. Sorry for the technical difficulties, but I want you to come back and keep us updated on the progress, because I think this is very important, useful, and valuable to community. And thank Hannah Green for coordinating and getting on this rather quickly. So this will be up on social media in a bit, and everybody will see it and know about it. How do people find you? What's a phone number or a website, or how do people find you and they want to tap in?
Best way to find us is to go to our website, cttenantsunion.org, and folks can sign up right then and there to become a member, and then they'll get all the communications from us. They can also put themselves on an interest list for an orientation meeting, and then they'll get an invite when our next orientation meeting is, so that they can have more information and kind of one-on-one conversation. And if they're in a Hammock Home building in particular, they can and should reach out to us ASAP. Also, if they're in an ocean management building, the way we approach things, kind of like I said at the beginning, is we focus on particular portfolios because that's just the fastest and most effective way for tenants to build power and make progress. So what we don't provide is a ton of one-on-one legal support. Sometimes tenants reach out to us saying, I'm in my battle with my landlord. Can you get me a lawyer? Can you do this or that? I wish that there were lawyers for everybody. That's not us. What we're doing is bringing community together to build power, and we use the law as a tool, but we're not a social service provider or a legal aid. New Haven Legal Assistance, awesome organization. That's where people should go for that. But all that to say, that's how people can find us is on our website. And if, like I said, if they're a Hammock Home tenant, they should get in touch ASAP because we really want to bring them together with other people who rent from their same landlord who are already in the process of fighting back.
Well, thank y'all for your time. Thank you, Jasmine. Thank you, Luke. And good luck today. I'll be watching the news. I'll catch it. And please thank Hannah Green for her coordination. And y'all come back on. Just come back. Just say, hey, I want to come back on. We want to talk about, where we're moving, how we're moving. So I appreciate your time this morning. Thanks for getting up early.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. All right, Harry. We're signing out. So.
Ride, ride, ride.